Welcome to the Daily Devo. My name's Joel, and today we're continuing in our series on prayer, talking about how God hears us. Today's passage comes from Matthew chapter 6, and in verses 7 and 8, it says this: "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." My wife and I moved earlier this year to Arizona, and with moving comes the process of getting settled. This includes finding a grocery store that has everything you need, establishing a primary care doctor, learning where the closest Chipotle is, finding a place to get an oil change, all the necessities of getting to know a new place. We went through this process of settling in, but there's one thing that I've neglected because it's just never a good time. And that thing is going to the dentist. Like most of you, I'm not a huge fan of going to the dentist, and I don't personally trust anyone who is, but that's besides the point. Part of the reason I don't enjoy going to the dentist is because when I go, I know they're going to say the same thing to me every single time. "Joel, make sure you floss." They give me these same instructions every time I visit, and here's the thing about flossing. I know that I'm supposed to. I know that it's good for me. I'm aware that it has benefits for my health, but for whatever reason, I rarely actually do it. And the reason I start here today is because I think prayer is kind of like flossing. I think prayer is something we know we're supposed to do. We know it's available to us and is good for us, but if we're honest, we don't engage in prayer as often as we should. In fact, statistics tend to back this up. One study from a couple years ago asked Christians how frequently they pray, and the largest response category, 33% of all responses answered with seldom or never. So, it would seem that prayer is something that we know we're invited to partake in, but a lot of us don't, at least not as often as we'd like. And I was thinking about that in my own life, and I was asking the question, why is that? Why don't I pray as often as I'd like? The answer I came to is that sometimes I'm not confident that God actually hears me. I worry that my words will go unheard, and so I end up not approaching God in prayer at all. And what I love about today's passage is that Jesus is teaching on prayer, and he simplifies prayer for us. He starts by saying that we don't need to ramble on or use a ton of words. Prayer can be short and to the point. We don't have to work hard or say the right thing to convince God to hear us. He already hears us because he cares for his children. Then Jesus continues on and reminds us that not only does God hear our prayers, he already knows what's on our hearts before we say it. I'm not sure about you, but this gives me a ton of comfort. It gives me peace to know that God's heart is for his children because he's a good father. Not a distant deity we need to work our way to. My prayer for us today is that we would sit under the truth that God knows what we're carrying before we say it, and that he also hears us when we come to him in prayer. I believe that if we take this to heart, we'll be much more likely to accept God's beautiful invitation to approach him in prayer, knowing that he cares deeply for us.